Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 244. Just for a second there, the number kind of hit me there. That's a lot of chapters of Hero Academia. Anyway, hey, welcome back after like a week of a break. Hey, I'm making this chapter video on a Saturday night. Why is it so late? Well, because it's a weekend. Weekends are really busy for me usually. And unfortunately for me, today especially, this is my second time recording it. I screwed up on my first time. But hey, you're not here to hear about me. We're here to talk about Hero Academia, and that's totally fine. Hero Academia, chapter 244. Okay, so overall, I feel like this was a bit of a setup chapter because I feel like you're getting information, and with Hawks' presence there, Hawks is like the epitome of a setup. He comes in there, he takes away the momentum from the chapter and adds it to himself, and he's just talking about, well, what he's hoping that Endeavor is going to do. So that's a setup chapter, no doubt about it. That's setup all the way. All that said and done, though, there are a few little details that I really appreciated in the chapter and really made the chapter pretty cool for me. Like, there's a few cool little tricks that the author was using here, and we're going to point that out as we go through the page by page. So without further ado, let's just get into that and go straight into the first page. So a few details here. The first detail that I really appreciated was what Bakugo was doing in that first panel. See, in the previous chapter, we had this shot of all of the kids going after Endeavor. Bakugo was one of the ones that tossed away his suitcase. So in this panel, you actually get a nice little follow-up where he kicks the suitcase onto his arm, which of course is, or onto his hand, which is of course requiring a lot of dexterity. Of course, it's Bakugo. He's like super competent when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I really like this because I was going to make the joke of Bakugo just threw his suitcase away. Oh man, what's he going to do? That seemed like a really cool suitcase. But no. The author thought ahead, got me, and added in that small detail. I really appreciated it. It was pretty cool to see that there. Now, the next half of the page also had a little detail in that it confirmed what we were talking about in the previous chapter. That was that Endeavor heard the sound before Izuku and the rest heard the sound. So when we were talking about that panel from the previous chapter, the one with like the very small speck next to the tree, it was a sound effect. Like, I'm really happy that the author wrote this in, because here you have a situation where not only are you telling us that, hey, yeah, Endeavor is that amazing, we can also trace it back. We can see what Endeavor heard before the others heard. So that was really cool. And that panel that Izuku uses to say that Endeavor heard the shockwave before they ever heard it, it sets up that this is very much a Endeavor is really powerful chapter. Like that's the one of the underlying rhetorics of the chapter. The chapter's going to be telling you that yes, Endeavor is actually really strong. And I'll point out which other lines are contributing to that overall feel. Now we go to the third page on the manga stream translation. That's the one I'm using as the reference point here. This page also tells you something about how the chapter is going to be constructed. This chapter ended up having a lot of, well, big panels. There were a lot of panels that were there to just demonstrate how powerful Endeavor was, or to demonstrate I guess the movement, to give you a good idea of how the movement was working out in this chapter. But this page that we're getting here with Endeavor jumping across the street and Todoroki pointing out that he was using flash fire, that this page ultimately feels like a power demonstration page. So it's appreciated, but I personally prefer the dialogue pages when it comes to talking about things, because there's only so much I can say about, oh yeah, Endeavor jumped across the road really quickly by using his flash fire. You know, not really much value after a certain point there with beyond just pointing out the ability. Now the next page is a kind of villain exposition page, because through the office workers we get something really cool. We find out that the guy who's attacking the city right now is the Servant of the Stars from 2nd Street. So right there, the fact that people know who this is tells me that this guy is like one of those guys that stands around at the corner of the street talking about the end is nigh. Maybe he has a giant cardboard sign having some nice propaganda on it. That's really what it feels like. And honestly, the guy's rhetoric kind of goes along that line. We'll talk a bit more about him at the end. But yeah, it's cool. That page was cool because it told us who this character was. and it showed us his power. That is, he is able to absorb glass or manipulate glass, as Endeavor later points out. So that was really cool. Now, initially, there was one guy in this page that I found really weird, and it was this guy, him saying that we can't afford to wait for the heroes. Given the stuff that happened with the Liberation Army and the propaganda, I thought that this guy was going to jump into action. I thought him saying that we can't afford to wait for heroes was pretty much him saying we can't afford to wait, so we have to defend ourselves. I thought that's where we were going. But as we went through the pages, like once we go to the next page, it's really hard to tell what exactly was going on here. Like what exactly was he doing? And then, you know, on the next page, we had this shot of him, and it honestly looked really weird because on my first glance, when you know that I was biased thinking that he's going to get combative, I thought, okay, is that support equipment? But then it's like, it doesn't make sense for that to be support equipment. That must just be stuff from his table. So it kind of changes the idea here that he was just trying to evacuate his stuff as opposed to defend himself. So that was interesting. Also on this page, we get to have a very nice shot of how much area of effect he has. Because when we see him using his Radiance of the Ruined King, if you look in the background, you can spot that the buildings surrounding him, even from behind, or the ones that were behind him, have lost a lot of glass. And we'll talk about this point later on when Endeavor gives a certain line. But it was really interesting to see the scope of this guy's ability. One more detail here that was really worthwhile was that as the guy was going to use his ability, he got a nosebleed. So two things that could be immediately. It's either one, it's just the natural weakness of his power, or two, he's going above his means artificially. But we'll talk more about that in Endeavor's line. So one thing that should be noted as we move forward, page 6 on Manga Stream, this page is another power demonstration page. The first half is the Servant of the Stars going and doing his thing, and then the next one is a combination of, well, this was really neat, of two Endeavor panels and showing how Endeavor just hit the glass. I thought it was really cool. This was one of two of the, like, 1 second it's here, the next second it's here. It's a very fluid motion. I'm really excited to see one like this animated. I wonder how they're going to do it. But one thing that was on this page that I think the author tried to draw attention to was the fact that this man is having a nosebleed. We have him bleeding out when he launches his glass ball, and we have him bleeding out when he's reacting to Endeavor going inside of the glass. Now we go into page 7, and page 7 is just Endeavor using Flash Fire Fist. This is just an art page of destruction. I can't speak much about it beyond it looks cool. That was cool. But yes, after that we get into the page that I find a little bit more interesting, and it's a page where Endeavor is effectively saying that this guy is really good. Like, his skill is outstanding. That was really interesting. So at this point, who ends up having really trained quirks? People that train for combat, heroes. Those are the guys that end up having really trained quirks. Why does this guy have a trained quirk? If he is just this prophetic type of guy who hangs out, like, he looks like a hobo. If he is just one of those kind of guys that just goes and harasses people on the street, you know, can he really have this level of strength? So what I'm thinking is, given that we have the nosebleed, it's very possible that a drug is involved. Because we've seen it before in the Hero Academia lore. We know Vigilantes has that as a plot point. Vigilantes revolves around a drug for a good portion of its story. And then even in the regular Hero Academia canon, we know that, well, like the people that Kirishima was fighting way back when during the Overhaul arc, one of them used a drug, right, to get his quirk to do some incredible things to Kirishima. I forget who the guy was, but I'm pretty sure a drug was involved there. So the idea of a quirk enhancer drug, that's not foreign. And given that this guy has this level of skill, I don't want to believe that it's him actually practicing. I feel more like this might just be a substance that's making it worse. Now in this page, we also get another line that is Endeavor questioning why he would pull a stunt like this under his watch. So it's good because we actually have this question answered later in the chapter. So it was good that the author put this in and framed it. And also, this is probably my favorite shot of Endeavor in the chapter. It just looked really, really good, man. Anyway, at the next page, we get another Endeavor power and competency demonstration type page. So that's just telling you how hot Endeavor makes things in general. Once the chase starts in this page also, we see how competent Endeavor is with delegating, as he tells one of the approaching heroes to just go and do the evacuation as he chases after the perp. So that was just really effective. If anything, it tells you Endeavor's competent. The next page is where we finally get the answer to why he would attack in Endeavor's zone. The answer was simple. He wanted to ambush Endeavor. So that was really cool. And that page, I did appreciate it because later on, the guy had a line that got me a little bit confused, but when you look back in the past, it made sense that he was going after Endeavor. So really cool to see that. The people that went in and tried to help him take out Endeavor, they also look kind of raggy. Like one of them has a pipe as a weapon, like we're pulling a Sabo from One Piece here. Another one of them, you know, they look like people that spend a lot of time outside. So I am kind of curious, and I'm also thinking back to One Punch Man. Like I'm thinking back to the Homeless King. That's, if you guys know that character, that's who I'm thinking of every time I see the Servant of the Stars and his buddies. I also kind of think of Gintama a little bit there. But yeah, after that, it leads into my favorite sequence in the chapter. That being this sequence where we see Bakugo and Izuku going in to back up Endeavor, so proving their usefulness. And then at the bottom of the page, you have them. You have Hawks making his entryway, and then you have like the next shift. So we had another second by second panel where you just see Izuku and Bakugo being thwarted by Hawks. So this is one of those pages where I really want to see what it looks like in the anime. I would love to see how the anime does it. I really hope they do like one continuous motion, and then they like, if they want to like really get the detail out of it, like they do a frame by frame after Hawks does it. I would just really love to see it in a continuous motion. I really hope they don't cheat it and just make it pretty much colored manga panels without any kind of thing connecting the two bits. It feels like it could be a really good animated moment. I know it's going to take a little bit more resource and a little bit more effort because of how dynamic the scene is, but it would be so cool, man. That got me really excited there. Anyway, Hawks comes in. Hawks is useful. That's great. That said, the next page I find is very interesting, that being the page where Hawks and Endeavor have their first conversation. So what I want you to note here is Shoto's reaction to Hawks showing up. So the exact progression of the panels are: Hawk shows up, he mentions to Endeavor that he thought that he was in a tough spot, so he came to help. And then Endeavor like has, he questions him like, did it look like I was in a tough spot? And then we have the Shoto being in awe. Now what I think is important here is I think Shoto legitimately, like there was some kind of feeling stirred in him. Like when I see Shoto's reaction, I'm thinking that Shoto is thinking, oh my god, there's someone that gets along with my dad. Like this guy is friendly with my father. What the heck? Because if you think about it from Shoto's perspective, he's lived with a jerk and an asshole for his whole life, and he doesn't expect his father to have friends. But here you had a more or less friendly conversation despite Endeavor's, you know, like his general poison. That conversation, the way it goes, you know, there is that level of camaraderie within the conversation. And Shoto's already seen, like, Hawks was there with his father when they were fighting against the Nomu. So Shoto must think that Hawks is like an anomaly compared to what he expected people, or compared to how he expected people to react to his father. And so we do get a confirmation of that when Hawks just keeps going in on Shoto and tells him, or uses his first name, and then tries to have a conversation with him. Like, again, one thing you can definitely take away from the page is that Shoto is in awe of Hawks. He is taken away by, I guess, Hawks' general persona. So that was really cool. And it does tell me that there's going to be some kind of payoff between these two characters later on. Now the next page was a page that honestly could have been resolved in just the upper third of a page with just quick shots, but the author decided he wanted to prioritize emotion as opposed to just information. And the emotion that was being conveyed here, I think he did a really good job with Hawks' panel where Hawks tells Endeavor that he was just floating by. The way that it's framed looks really good. Framing Hawks between his darkened wings tells you, or like it gives you that like as a viewer or a reader, when you're seeing that page, it tells you there's a layer of deception here. Like Hawks is hiding behind something. He is obscured. It's a mask. And just Hawks' whole general demeanor between his costume and his wings. The framing was excellent. It conveyed an idea with the imagery and not just the words. I think the panel itself was well constructed. I like what the what the author was doing. Like, if you were looking at this panel out of context, the way that the character is obscured would make you think this character is lying. And as we find out later, that is kind of where Hawks is going. Like, he was playing around with lies and truth as we continue in the chapter, which makes sense. After all, he's being spied on. But before we get to Hawks, we still have a little bit of the Servant of the Stars. So the Servant of the Stars was there, and he was saying that Endeavor is the source of darkness, that he, he's gonna bring about the demise. And it's like, okay, what I'm ultimately at, what I question is this guy, can he actually get information about the future? We live in a quirky world. Night Eye was a thing. Can this guy actually find out about the future through his quirk? I don't know. Is he an astrologer? Probably. But does he have an astrology-based quirk? I don't know. From what we've seen, glass manipulation, that doesn't really tell me that this guy is good at divination. Maybe he has some kind of weird component within his glass manipulation that he can see things within his glass. I don't know how. It could happen though, because someone like Todoroki exists. A nice combination of quirks could make that. But again, I don't know. I don't know how much. I don't know how much I should believe that guy. Is pretty much the idea. So when the guy says that Endeavor is going to bring along great demise, it's like, well, yeah. But as readers, I'm saying that because Endeavor is surrounded by the 3 most prominent characters in My Hero Academia. That's just asking for trouble. So when the guy says there's going to be a lot of demise because of Endeavor or coming to deal with Endeavor, it's like, yeah, probably. Ultimately, it doesn't tell us whether or not this guy's off his rocker or if he actually knows the future. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, the other points of value within this page are that Endeavor solved this incident without casualties. A lot of property damage, but no casualties, which is again talking about how effective Endeavor is. And we find out that Hawks knows Izuku as the guy that blew up his fingers. That was unfortunate. Anyway, from there, we move into the Hawks page where he gives us the information that Tokoyami isn't around. He is at Hawks' general area. Makes sense. Hawks is doing dangerous stuff. You don't want to get Tokoyami involved, which is unfortunate because I really felt that this arc could have been a 4-person arc instead of just the 3 people from UA as interns. That would have been really cool, but what can you do? Anyway, we go into the next panel where I think the author did something really neat here. What I want to draw your attention to is how Hawks stops what he's saying and looks at Bakugo and says that he feels bad for Tokoyami while looking at Bakugo. I really like this because there's a double meaning there. Not only does he feel bad for Tokoyami on that surface level, he feels bad for Bakugo. Like, there is legitimately, when you look at the way that the author constructed that panel, he feels bad for Bakugo for what he did to Best Jeanist. Hawks most likely knows that that Bakugo has a connection to Best Jeanist. And again, Hawks is the guy that was, at the very least, even if we're saying that Best Jeanist isn't dead, at the very least was making it look like Best Jeanist is dead. Regardless, Hawks is responsible for why Best Jeanist has gone missing, whether he's dead or not. So it makes sense for why he's saying feel bad for him in reference to Bakugo in that particular scene. Again, I like it because looking at the panel progression, there is a clear double meaning hidden with how the author positioned that. He's again telling a story through the imagery and not just the words, which I really appreciated it. I thought that looked really good. Anyway, after that point, we go on full into the Hawks rhetoric where he is telling the good word of the Liberation Army. And Izuku makes note of the book that Hawks reads. So now Izuku knows about the idea. And we ultimately leave off the chapter with Hawks trying to get a message across to Endeavor. Now, initially I was confused when I read this chapter because I thought like his final words to Endeavor were a little bit too vague. Him saying that they're going to have all the free time in the world. It is linked to Hawks' character. But, if I was Endeavor, I'm not sure if I would pick up something weird in there. Because I feel like to pick up something weird in what Hawks is saying, you have to note that the Liberation Army rhetoric is weird. And I'm not too sure how well that would work. Regardless, the game has now turned into a thing of Hawks is trying to give away a coded message. He has bookmarks in a book, most likely containing a message. We can give that message over to Endeavor. Will Endeavor take the book from Hawks? Will Endeavor note that Hawks saying that they could have all the free time in the world? Will he note that that's not the best way to go about getting a better world and then take the book from Hawks because he believes in Hawks' better judgment? Are we going to get that? I don't know. If you, I have some doubt that Endeavor just ignores Hawks and goes away because it's Endeavor. If I was to quantify my doubt, it's pretty much 80% Endeavor takes the book, 20% Endeavor doesn't. What will happen? I have no idea. But I am pretty excited to see. Any Hoosers. Overall, I think a fun chapter. I had a lot of highlights. There was some cool stuff going on in it. Let me know if I missed anything. I gotta keep going with my day. Gotta keep working on stuff. But hey, thank you so much for spending, over 20 minutes with me. Thanks for reading the chapter through with me. And again, if you have anything to say, leave it down below. But yeah, this time, I got it all recorded. So hopefully this will be the last time I have to record this one. Anyway, yes. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.